this is Steve Kaempf with the People Not Titles podcast, and I am really, really thrilled today to have with me real estate attorney Joan Dillon. And Joan has been in real estate law for how many years, Joan?
30.
30 years. That's amazing. And I am just so excited to talk to her about her kind of career trajectory, life path, and her entrepreneurial journey. And so, Joan, let's right out of the gate. Thank you, by the way, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're really excited.
My first podcast.
Oh, that's amazing. That's great. Well, we're honored to have you. You are a legendary partner of our title company, and I know so many agents that just love working with you. And so we are just grateful to be able to tap into your experiences today and hear your story. So let's talk a little bit about your, you're going to college and you're like, I want to be a lawyer. I mean, how did that come to be?
I would have to credit that to a professor I had in undergrad. So I was, it was a class that was off the beaten path for me. I think I took it because it fit into my schedule, and it was a logic class. It was taught by a professor who was also a lawyer. And it was, my memory of it was very heavy in writing. I believe we had a paper that was due every week. And my papers would come back with little comments like, great legal thought, or this is how a lawyer would answer this.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
And one day, she stopped me as I was leaving the class and asked me what I was studying. And I told her I was a nursing major. And she was this was her way. She was very dry, very black and white and direct. She said something that stayed with me. She said, no, you are a lawyer. And so,
whoa.
Of course, I went home and shared this with my parents. And this was news to all of us because there were no lawyers in the family. So no mentor, no exposure.
No even vision or a seed planted before that.
Never had a thought.
Wow,
never had
that
a
is
thought.
really powerful.
And I took some pre-law classes, loved it, and not long thereafter I was changing gears.
Wow. And so did you stay in touch with this person?
I haven't stayed in touch with her all these years.
Okay, but did she
did
know?
Yes, I went back to her, and actually I attended, so I was in Loyola undergrad. She taught at Loyola undergrad. I went to Loyola Law School.
Fantastic.
So she knew that she got me on the journey.
And that's a really amazing, and it's powerful for anyone who's watching, and even myself, to think that a word you can say to a young person in a formidable time can have someone totally transition their life into a new direction. We have to be careful with our words, right?
Yes,
and they're
sure.
really powerful.
I think that isn't that the case, that sometimes someone can see something in you that you don't yet recognize.
That's great. And so then you decided, I'm going to be an attorney. And so were you, was that something that you were determined to, go into? I know we talked about that you started into business right out of law school.
Right.
What was that? How did that come to be?
Yeah. Well, when I ran the projector forward, I knew I wanted to have my own practice, but when I was young and just graduating from law school, I looked forward and thought, if I marry or I have children, I don't know if I'll have the time and the energy to devote to building a law practice. So my thought at the time was, I'll do it now. And no one does that, by the way. And for very good reasons, Steve.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just
I
incredible.
know most people start at a firm, or they start working with the state's attorney's office, or they do something like that, and then they build their credo and their chutzpah and courage and whatever it is, and then they go, okay, I think I'll step out and do some of this. And maybe even some of them do some real estate, with the firm, and then, that kind of thing. And then they realize, they kind of squirrel away whatever knowledge and money, and they begin their firm. So this is definitely something I haven't heard.
Yes. I don't know of another person that attacked it the same way I do. I did. But yeah, that was my thought. My thought was, this seems like the right time in my life to do this. And it was one of those things truly that I didn't know enough to know I didn't know enough. And it wasn't until I was actually in it, standing knee deep in it, that I realized the massiveness of it. Yes. And it was massive. It was, I was taking whatever walked in the door. So I was learning. I mean, there's law school and then there's practice.
Yes.
And the two are very different.
Yes.
And so I would have to learn.
You have to be generating business. I mean, it's not
that's
just,
a whole
here I am,
area.
I'm a lawyer, I'm smart.
Right.
No one cares about that.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Every penny you have to earn and capture. So it's learning that area of the law. It's learning the procedure, the court system. It's being the person that's dealing with customer service, lead generation, like you mentioned. The
structure of business, if you have to hire an employee, whatever it is. So did you have any entrepreneurial mentors? Like, did anyone say, did anyone, you look at someone and go, wow, there's a business owner, I want to be like them, and so I'm going to take that path? Was there anyone that you looked at as a young person and said, I'm going to model myself after them?
Not really.
Okay.
I
That's
just
really
knew
unique.
I wanted to have something that was my own, and I could visualize it, I could see it, and it was something that was important to me. So, and I recognized before I actually did it that it would be a mountain. How large of a mountain, I don't think I had that concept, but I was willing to buckle down and start the climb. So that's what I did.
Joan, knowing what you know, do you think that if you would have gotten hooked up with a firm for do you think it would have been almost impossible? Because most people are, you always say, oh, I'm not ready for it. You weren't ready for it, right? But when you got into it, you did it, and you.
Sure.
Do you think it would have been more difficult for you to transition to that entrepreneurial mindset, or do you think, like, you know what, I'm going to be here eventually, so I might as well start now?
Yeah, it might have been harder for me down the road. Like I mentioned, my concern was maybe I would be in a relationship, get married, and have a family.
Yes.
So I was weighing that, and I didn't want to not go for it. I didn't want to not achieve it in my life. And I felt like it was going to be hard. I recognized that.
Yeah.
But I was also willing to do the work.
And so what was the work that you did first? Because it wasn't real estate law right out of the gate, right?
No.
And was there, I don't even know there was an agency program at that time. But anyway, so were you doing estate, or what?
I was doing what walked in the door.
Wow.
So and it was very hard to get clients because they would ask you how long you've been practicing, and when you say I've been practicing 8 weeks, that doesn't really sound good.
Yeah.
So but that's a part of it too, is learning to show them your passion and getting them to trust you.
Yeah.
And
that's a skill.
that is a skill. It's a necessary skill for business, that's for sure. And I took what walked in the door. My very first case was representing someone who had stolen from a liquor store. So that was my first client.
Okay.
And I just took what came in the door. It was only until I ended up in real estate, kind of by accident. My office was in Printers Row. Are you familiar?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, beautiful part of the city.
Yeah.
And the office, a lot of professionals down there, row-style offices. And further down the row was a lawyer that had a significant real estate practice. And he asked me to cover a closing. So having never seen a closing or done a closing.
It's like that walked in the door, I got it.
I can do that, sure.
I'd love to have a video of that one.
Oh my, yeah. But actually, in all fairness, he had it sewn up very tightly for me.
So you're just there.
I was there, collecting checks and making sure nothing went off the tracks. But while I was there, I thought, this is very interesting.
Happy people around the
Oh, my
table,
goodness.
shaking hands, exchanging keys.
So much easier to get paid than some of the clients I had.
No doubt. No collections.
And I didn't hear from him then for a couple months. And then I got a phone call, and he told me he was battling an illness and asked me if I had some time to help him out. So in the afternoons, I would go from my office, I walked down the block, and I would go in and help him with his real estate files. So it was in the process of doing that that I really learned the business. I was working on, the transfer docs. I was working on prepping the files and getting them ready. And then as he got more ill, unfortunately, he wasn't able to, go to his closings.
Joan, when I think about that, I think of that when you started your business, the whole road wasn't clear to you, right? But as you start walking down the road, it's like walking in the fog. You walk 5 feet, and then you can see 5 more feet.
Right.
And then eventually some doors open up, and you start to see your path.
Very true.
And so I applaud you for beginning. And I think you can, that lets me know how you can relate to agents who begin on their path, and you understand the value of the deal that walked in the door and how hard people work for that.
Sure.
And I know how seriously you take every relationship and every transaction.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and I think it's great that people can understand that, hey, I was in your shoes and still am in many ways, right? When you're still working in business and all that, but you were in their shoes, whether you're just beginning or whether you're trying to figure out your path, you've been able to recognize and navigate those things successfully. So, and still do a good job, all the things that an entrepreneur has to do, and still do a good job at law. You know what I mean? So anyway, bravo.
Thank you.
So then, did you just toggle your whole business over to real estate law once you?
Yes. So I work with him, and unfortunately he passed. And for me, it wasn't a question of like he gave me agents or files, and nor would I have ever expected that.
Sure.
But the gift of what he gave me was the area of the law that I would ultimately practice in. Because after that, I stopped taking whatever walked in the door, and I just focused on real estate.
And what has that meant to you? I mean, what makes real estate special? Since you've, that's another thing too, that some people get out of law school and go, hey, I heard there's money in real estate, let me go over there, right? But you were able to make success in other areas of law, but you chose real estate. And so that is, I think, a unique distinction, that this is something you're choosing to do as opposed to, that's the way I pay the bills, I'm going to grind it out for whatever. Why? How does this separate from the rest of the law that you practice, and what makes this special for you?
It is special. I love it. It's where I'm passionate about it. My clients are not files, they're families. And I've learned so much from the families I've met along this journey. I've represented some amazing people and different times of their lives, different struggles, hardships, and they've been great teachers.
Wow. Well, I love that. These are not files, these are families. That's fantastic. That could be like a slogan that we have on our bumper sticker. So now you're working with agents, and so what's that like? Why do agents pick you, Joan? What do you think is personified in your brand?
Probably for all the reasons we've touched on briefly. I am I think, naturally born competitor. I'm someone that doesn't quit. So when I make a commitment to something, I see it through. I'm passionate about what I do. I love it. And I know how to get families from point A to point B safely and sewn up. And I'm good at what I do and I enjoy it. So I think they recognize that in me, and they know I'm a true partner through the process.
So, Joan, there's a lot of emotion in a real estate transaction, especially you got first-time buyers like, oh, my deal going to go through. Yeah. You got sellers that are like, oh my gosh, I got the moving van, all these different things, right? How do you, and I know not every transaction it has high emotion, but there is some. You got real estate agents that this is their business. They're relying on, the transaction to close. How do you keep things on the rails and keep everyone calm, as much as you can? Because
I know how it will end,
That's great. Yeah, you know the end of the road.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's a process, and it's about putting together a puzzle, and at the end, you want a happy client. That's always the goal. A happy client is a referring client. I do actually probably 5% of advertising for my brand because it's all from agents and people I've represented in the past. Those families remember me. And I want the experience to be something that they'll pass on to someone else.
That's powerful. So now you're probably working multi-generational in that way. That's great. That's really amazing. So let's talk a little bit about just how you balance. You know, you're a professional. You're working in the real estate business, which is sometimes 24/7, right? Because a lot of deals are done on the weekend and all that kind of thing. And you're a mom, and you have a personal life that that you take a lot of personal pride in. Just from my experience, how does that? How do you balance that? Just for any professional, it's looking like, okay, do I have to sacrifice my personal life for my professional life?
Right. So the same vision and focus that I put into the real estate portion of my life, I also put into motherhood. That's how I mother. I have 2 kids, so it was much harder when they were younger. So 2 children. They're now, my son Gianni is a junior at the University of Notre Dame, and Jilly, my daughter, is a sophomore at Notre Dame. But so many years ago, it was much more challenging because their needs were different than they are now.
Yes, your presence was important, right?
Right.
I mean, that's just it. Yeah.
But it's about seeking excellence, seeking a high level of presence, and not only the legal portion of my life, but also, very importantly, motherhood.
Yeah, and so you can understand, and so I see you've worked that with a lot of intentionality.
Yeah, sure.
Right, and that's important. A lot of people are really good at business, but then it's like, oh yeah, my family life suffers or whatever. And I think you can also relate to the real estate brokers that are trying to balance those same things, right? They're trying to hustle for a transaction. They're trying to build and grow their business, and at the same time, they have family to balance and all that. So it's just another identification point for you with agents. And I think that's great. It's another unique piece of the package that you get. It's not just all business, but there's this kind of holistic approach that you take in your relationships with agents that I've noticed. So that's really cool. Is there anything that happened during COVID, right? We had this COVID period of time that has changed real estate as you see it right now, or at least the way that law is being practiced in the real estate realm? And how have you either changed, leaned into, or whatever, after that period of time?
Since COVID, you see a lot of attorneys not attend closings. I think the vast majority of closings, I would say I'm usually the only lawyer there. I like to attend the closing because, to me, why would you miss the best part?
Yes.
I think that it's a day of celebration.
Yeah.
All the hard work has been done. Everything is sewn up tightly.
Yeah.
The client is in great shape, and they're either going into a new home and starting the next chapter in their lives, or they're collecting a check. And so it's a happy day, and I want to be a part of that happy day. But I see a lot of lawyers that don't attend closings. I will attend a closing. I think I attend 95% of my closings. It's a ridiculously high number. Because I want to be a part of that memory. Yeah,
it's interesting that you say that because everyone has a different way of doing it, but I do believe that people usually remember the end of the journey the most. And for an agent to trust you with a client, right, and then for them to know that at the end of the journey, not because you have to be there has to be work done and everyone's scrambling around with paperwork or whatever, but just that out of respect for the journey, you're like, hey, let's all show up together and let's celebrate this moment. That's really powerful.
Yeah, definitely.
We talked before about just the environment we're in right now, which is there's not a lot of sellers and there's a lot of buyers, right? And so has there anything special that you've done in counseling buyers when they're making offers, or during this period of time where you're trying to win the house that's for sale? Is there some something that you could share with us in that regard?
So that might be a little bit difficult because when I'm involved in the transaction procedurally, the contract has already been signed, so they've already gotten the house.
Yeah, yep.
But I think it's a stressful time for buyers now because they're battling it out with other buyers for the home.
And do you find during that period of time of the review or whatever that there's another boom that
they're backups.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I want to address your question. I'm
Sure,
definitely there for the client.
Yeah.
But I think more importantly for the agent, because imagine this agent taking somebody out to maybe 30 or 40 homes, being in multi-offer situations. The realtors are exhausted.
Yeah, they're doing 10 times the work for the same transaction right now.
For sure.
Yeah.
And it's not an easy road for them.
Yes.
And they're, so I try to be as supportive as possible with the realtors that I work with. I'm at a great stage in my career that I get to work with the best of the best.
That's awesome.
And I just love the realtors that I work with. And we have a very good relationship. They know they can reach out to me, call me with any questions or concerns, or when they're in that multi-offer situation. And it's a unique time. It certainly is. It's a difficult time. Real estate tends to come in waves, and we're definitely in a lower part of the wave.
Yeah.
But the sellers will return, and the market will even out eventually. We're just not there yet.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Is there anything other than just doing the great work that you do, Joan, and continuing to build into your relationships? Is there any other vision that you have for your law firm? Like, is there anything that's coming to you that you're like, hey, I'd like to head in this direction? Or are you just going to stay the course, like how you're working right now?
I love what I do.
Yeah.
I see myself here and feel very blessed. I am in a great place, and the relationships are very important to me. Real estate is relationships, and I'm focused on the people in my life and good quality work. That work represents me. I recognize that, so you better believe I'm going to show up with good work, and just I think building those relationships with realtors, making sure that they're enjoying the journey too, whether they're brand new, because I think that's very exciting, because I again know how the story will end, and or whether they've been in it for 25 years. And we're very blessed to have this work and to help these families, and I have a lot of gratitude.
Yeah, it's an honorable business, right?
It
really,
it's fun.
I share that with you. Okay, so let's talk, just as we wrap up, let's talk about your partnership with Land Trust. And how is that? I mean, what makes, just your relationship with Land Trust title? I know you have other title companies that you work with and all that, but for you, what makes your relationship with Land Trust special?
It's important who you partner with, which is, I think, the theme of today.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
You guys are excellent.
That's awesome.
You really are.
Yeah.
And I've said this in the past, and I'll continue to say it. It's the customer service. So from the lawyer's perspective, and we're not even touching on what the sellers and the buyers get from the transaction.
Yes.
Just as the lawyer looking in on this process, it is quality. I know that I can pick up a phone and get on a call with somebody if I need help. The customer service, the support, the legal team. It's very high quality, and I take my business to you because I know that these clients, these families that I have, they're precious to me, and I want to put them in a safe spot.
That's great. Thank you. We appreciate that partnership.
You guys have the best closers.
Wow, that's great.
I say that all the time.
Yeah.
The closers are the best.
That's great. Well, they love you too, Joan. So it's a mutual admiration society. Let's talk, while we're on that subject, let's talk about Anya. We were talking about that before.
My gosh.
Yeah, and I know Anya has, she's a treasure for us. We love, but what's your relationship with her like, just in working with her in business?
I think I've told her this last time I was hanging out with her, that you know, if I didn't know her for business, I would choose her as a friend.
Wow, that is really a
good
compliment.
person.
Yeah, she is a
Hardworking,
great person.
and like I was saying to you earlier, that I can't imagine her as a realtor because she's dynamic. She pulls people in.
Yes.
And she cares about people. She cares about placing them and making sure that you have good connections and intros and opportunities. And my goodness, talk about having a partner in, you know, on the ride. She's been a blessing. So you guys are very lucky to have her.
Yes, I know, Joan. I know, Joan. That's great. Well, I know I asked you a loaded question there, but I do love to hear what everyone's experience is with our, account executives. And Anya is one of the best we have, so that's fantastic.
For sure.
So, Joan, I just want to say, I think we're about 30 minutes in. That's perfect. I want to say thank you. I always admired the way you do business. We've always appreciated your partnership with us, and you're truly, one of the greats in the industry. And there's just so much more for us to do together. And so I want to thank you for sharing your story.
Oh my gosh, Steve, thank you. My pleasure. I thank you for the opportunity. I'm very grateful for you and all your support, and I'm looking forward to the future. We've got some good stuff coming.
Great.
Thank you.